Singapore is on track to meet its target of training 1,500 SGSecure Responders in psychological first aid by the end of this financial year. About 1,300 have already completed the course, part of a national push to build mental resilience on the front lines and the community. And it's not just responders. Demand for psychological first aid training has surged nearly 20-fold in the past 5 years as more youths, workers and caregivers learn to spot and support people in distress. Last year alone, the Singapore Red Cross trained about 7,500 people, including 475 SGSecure Responders. Another 10,000 have been trained by the Singapore Emergency Responder Academy. So what exactly is psychological first aid, and why are more Singaporeans signing up to learn it? Nicholas Ng explains.
A scraped knee from a fall, a cut from preparing dinner. These wounds can be treated with a first aid kit. But what about injuries we can't see? The distress, shock, or grief someone may feel after a crisis. That's where psychological first aid, or PFA, comes in. PFA is an evidence-based intervention designed to reduce trauma-based stress and help individuals recover emotionally after an emergency. The idea took root in the mid-20th century, but it gained global momentum after 9/11, when the need for structured emotional support in crises became clearer. While Singapore may not face an imminent terror attack, it remains a target. That's why psychological defense is one of the 6 pillars of total defense. A reminder that resilience is as much about mental readiness as it is about physical security.
It's also due to the COVID-19 pandemic, right? It was not that long ago that changed how we view mental well-being. I think people talk about social isolation, about uncertainty, how it affected themselves and other people, and made people more aware of topics like mental health.
But emotional distress doesn't only happen during major crises. Everyday emergencies, an accident, sudden loss, or unexpected disaster can also leave people shaken. That's why Singapore has a 24/7 national helpline, with trained counsellors providing free support. The largest group of users? Young working adults, followed by teenagers. When supporting someone in distress, avoid phrases that may dismiss their feelings. Don't cry, it's not that bad. Cheer up. Recovery isn't immediate or linear, and no two people cope the same way. Another mistake, assuming you know what they need without first listening.
We talk too much and we listen too little. And then we feel that silence is very uncomfortable. We need to break the silence by talking. But actually, silence sometimes is what is needed for the individuals. Sometimes when someone comes to us in distress for help, we end up asking a lot of questions. We dig into the details of the distress they're going through, and that can sometimes cause them to be re-traumatized by it.
To bridge this gap, organizations like the Singapore Red Cross and the Singapore Emergency Responder Academy run training programs. In 2024, around 7,500 individuals trained in PFA, from first responders to grassroots volunteers.
The topic of mental health is certainly less stigmatized now. People would talk about anxiety, stress, and burnout a lot more openly. Now I see companies signing up, HR teams, teachers, managers, grassroots volunteers, parents signing up. Young adults are signing. I think now we even talk about teenagers signing up for such program.
If you find yourself needing to administer PFA, remember the 3 L's. Number 1, look. Assess the situation. Is it safe? Identify who needs help. Number 2, listen. Introduce yourself, ask about their concerns, and attend to their immediate needs. And number 3, link. Connect survivors with medical care, legal aid, or even reuniting them with their loved ones.
It really shortens the time between distress and getting the help that they need. People may get the help earlier before the issues spiral. I think importantly, it reduces the sense of isolation. The person feels seen and safe, and they are not alone. I think all these things, when done well, really helps to build resilience in schools, in workplaces, and in the community, by addressing the issue early before they escalate into something more serious like aggression or suicidality.
Psychological first aid isn't a magic fix, but it's one of the most important tools we have to build resilience, giving everyday Singaporeans the skills to support one another if or when crisis strikes. Because sometimes first aid doesn't come from a plaster or a bandage. It comes from listening and simply being there.
And while PFA continues to gain traction in Singapore, some challenges remain with getting more people to take up such training. For one, many continue to associate first aid as something solely physical and not emotional. There are also misconceptions that psychological first aid is something only professionals can administer. And for working adults juggling multiple priorities, PFA tends to take a back seat unless training is subsidized or tied to workplace requirements. To address these challenges, organizations like the Singapore Red Cross are leveraging government initiatives like Skills Future credits to make PFA courses more affordable. Other organizations like the Singapore Emergency Responder Academy offer alternative, flexible training modes. E-learning, live online sessions, and industry-specific scenario exercises are helping to make training more accessible. These organizations are also working with companies, schools, and grassroots communities to position PFA as a practical life skill that anyone can apply to support others in distress. And for more analysis, we have with us family counselling psychologist Adrian Lim Peng. Adrian, welcome to the studio.
Hi, Angela.
Well, let's start with some of the measures that you've heard earlier that the organizations are taking to get more Singaporeans interested in PFA training. Is enough being done?
To some extent, it's a start because this is long time coming. We need really to start from actually very young in schools. If having come from 3 decades working with the school system as a school social worker and school counsellor, that I see that many of this needs to be done upfront from young, because I was doing the work with emergency work in school. We call caring actions in response to emergencies. I was a chief EBO at that time, and many of them are not trained, and they get very overexcited, hysterical, or kanchiong in our local context, and that doesn't help the others in the vicinity, whether it's a school, the workplace, or in the public. So there is really, we need to beef up this aspect of it.
Not just for the teachers as well, but perhaps even for the students or the children.
Students, there are many things that I'm going to talk about it tomorrow, actually, that there are certain specific techniques that we can learn using our own body to help our body. Because the key is when someone is in distress, it's more effective for the person to use the body to calm the mind than the mind to calm the mind, because the mind has been switched off, what is called a downward shift. Right? So it's critical that we know how to work with our own body. And that is where life skills, self-help skills, to be able to support ourselves and the people that we are around us.
Yeah, and the younger you pick that up, it becomes a habit that you can take with you for life, in a way. I want to talk a bit more about whether psychological first aid can relate to therapy in a complementary way, or do you think it can replace it to some extent?
No, it is like going for an emergency room, in a hospital. They do the first line of support. Thereafter, they will be channeled to the different medical departments to follow up. It's a similar perspective and the flow, right? So it is getting as many people to know the skill to connect, to engage, to link, so that people on the ground, in the neighborhoods, where something happened in the hawker center, how are they going to be able to respond? It's just like, the CPR that we learned, right? How many of us are trained in CPR? I was there in 1985 when the first youth program that was launched, to help train the civil defense training. I still remember in 1985. So I find it very important that all our children, even primary, secondary school, need to learn step by step, because anything can happen anywhere, especially in this turbulent time.
Yeah, I was going to ask, for people who are thinking, in what situation would I need psychological first aid? They think maybe there's not a lot of instances they're going to apply it. Why would I spend that time and energy to learn? What would you say to that? What are some examples where this becomes very crucial?
if your loved one suddenly collapses for heart CPR, but someone just got bad news and you don't know what to do with them, how are you going to be responsible, right? Ability to know what to do when and how to support that person.
How would you say psychological first aid fits into Singapore's overall mental health strategy?
Okay, this is where there is a whole flow of services that we need to support, right? And in my over 32 years, I've been trying to get people to learn and to know much more, because you don't wait until you want to go to the toilet and you find where's a toilet or the emergency exit. You need to know. These are mindsets that we need to set people upon. And you go to a new building, I have to first know where is the emergency exit. So there's anything to happen, I know where to go and what to do. Right?
Yeah.
And that is only the factual part. The emotional part that you mentioned earlier is so important. How do you calm our bodies? The most simple is to do breath work, taking deep breath into the nose and out through the mouth slowly. What we call box breathing. There are so many types of breathing. And this is where we are able to calm our kanchiong side to the more relaxed side. And this is physiological, right? What we know as a sympathetic to the parasympathetic.
Yeah, Adrian, but before we go, in addition to breath work, as you just mentioned, do you have any practical tips for those who are listening now in terms of calming people down or calming ourselves down in an emergency?
Sure. One of the very simple activities you can do is to do what is known as havening. Just put your hands there and start saying positive things, right? I'm okay. It's going to be okay. Just sayang yourself in our local terms. To
soothe yourself.
Yeah. Just like when you are crying as a child, your mother, your father, your caregiver will be soothing you. Same thing, when someone is in distress or is grieving, you hug and you soothe them, And this is where very simple stuff. You don't need medication, because it's immediately done. I will talk much more about this in the second segment. There will be interviewing to show me. I will show 4 different techniques. Right? One is energy flow, triple calmer. The other one is, I mentioned already, havening. The grounding is the other aspect of it. So these are aspects that we can do it, and it doesn't need to be an emergency to do it. You can actually do it when you're taking examination, you're calming yourself down, or you're late for interview, or you just catch your breath. If you catch your breath, hold it back. And there are so many techniques. And
they're all quite simple and very applicable in a wide range of situations.
And it's clinically proven. The most important, it works. It works. And why are we not training it at the very youngest age? Because the gap between 10 to 29 is the one that has a suicide the most.
Yeah, and this is definitely a great start for all of us to have these techniques in place. Adrian, thank you so much for coming in today. I've been talking to Adrian Lim Peng, who is a family counselling psychologist.